Millions of years ago, the planet was teeming with life. As time went on, animals got faster, smarter, and even more deadly. Welcome to Evolution. Evolution is a hand and resource management game for 2 to 6 players from North Star Games. Players will have to keep their creatures alive by evolving and adapting them to their ever-changing environments. Will you be able to grow your population, or will they just be a carnivore's meal? Let's find out in Evolution. Place the watering hole in the center of the table and put the food tokens nearby to create the food bank. Each player will receive a food bag, a species board, 1 brown marker to be placed in the first blank slot on the body size tracker, and 1 green marker to be placed in the first blank slot of the population tracker. Shuffle the trait cards and place them face down near the board. Finally, randomly determine the first player and place the green dinosaur in front of them. Now you are ready to play. Evolution is played in 5 phases: deal cards, select food, play cards, reveal food, and feeding. During phase 1, give a species board and a brown and green marker to anyone who does not have one. Then deal 3 cards to each player, plus 1 for each species board they have in front of them. For the first round, each player will receive 4 cards, 3 for the draw phase and 1 for their species board. In later rounds, players can gain more species, which will bring their card count up. For example, I have 2 species boards in front of me, so I would receive 5 cards during this phase, 3 plus 2 for the species boards. In phase 2, players will decide how much food will be available for all of their species. In the bottom right-hand corner of each trait card is a number that represents the number of food tokens it is worth. Players will choose how much food will be available during the round by placing a card face down around the watering hole. These will be revealed a little later in the game. During phase 3, the first player will play trait cards. There are 3 different things you can do during this action. You can play trait cards on your species. Simply place your desired trait card face down above the species board. You may not have duplicated traits or more than 3 traits above each species. You can also create a new species. In order to do this, discard 1 trait card face up onto the discard pile. Then take another species board and place a green and brown marker on the first corresponding empty spaces. This new species board must be placed either to the left or the right of your current species. You cannot place a species board in between 2 boards already in play. Finally, you can expand your population or your body size. Discard 1 trait card face up for every level you want to increase. For example, I could discard 2 trait cards to grow my body size 2 spaces, my population 2 spaces, or my body size 1 space and my population 1 space. At any point during this phase, you can remove trait cards from above your species boards by placing them in the discard pile. However, this will not get you any other benefits. Once everyone has played their cards, flip all of the new cards face up. At the beginning of the 4th phase, check to see if you have any cards that occur before the reveal food stage. If you do, make sure to do it, otherwise you lose that ability until the next round. Once everyone has completed their actions, the first player will flip over each of the food cards, count up the number of food, and place the corresponding number of food tokens in the watering hole. It is possible that the number could be negative. If that is the case, and there are food tokens left from the previous round, take that number of food tokens off of the watering hole. Place the revealed cards into the discard pile. Finally, the 5th phase, or the feeding phase. Starting with the first player and continuing clockwise around the table, players will take turns feeding their species 1 token at a time until all hungry species have been fed or there is no more food available. There are 2 different types of species, carnivores and non-carnivores. If you are feeding a non-carnivore on your turn, take 1 food token from the watering hole and place it on your species board. If you are feeding a carnivore on your turn, there are a few rules you must follow. A carnivore can never eat plant food, even with the help of trait cards. Even though a carnivore may not eat plant food, a non-carnivore may eat meat if they have a trait card that allows them, like the scavenger card. Carnivores must attack other species in order to survive. In order to successfully attack another species, the carnivore's body size must be greater than the species that it is attacking. In some cases, players may have defensive cards that will keep carnivores from attacking. If that is the case, the carnivore must have the traits necessary to overcome the defenses. For example, this species has the defensive card Climbing. In order for my carnivore to attack, it must also have Climbing. A carnivore must eat if it is hungry. That means they may take some damage from some other defensive cards like Horns. If a carnivore can successfully attack another species, move the population cube down by 1. If that takes the population below the amount of food that it has already eaten, place that food into their food bag. If that takes the population down to 0, that species is now extinct. Then take the number of tokens equal to that species' body size from the food bank. Once you have the number of food tokens equal to the population, your species is full. You may not take more tokens than your population unless you have the fat tissue card. If there wasn't enough food for all of the species to be full, move the population down the number of food spaces that were not filled. For example, I wasn't able to fill up this species, so I'll have to lose 2 population squares. Once the feeding round is finished, take the used food tokens and place them in your food bag. All tokens remaining on the watering hole will stay there for the next round. Pass the first player dinosaur to the left and begin a new round. If a species goes below 1 population, they are now extinct. Remove the trait cards, place them in the discard pile, and draw 1 card for each discarded card. If you run out of cards, shuffle them up, and the following round will be the last round. Place any remaining food into your food bag and discard that species board. If it is in between 2 other species boards, close the gap between the 2. The game ends when the trait card deck runs out. If the cards run out during phase 1, that will be the final round. If the cards run out during an extinction, you will shuffle the cards and play one last round. Once the final round ends, players can begin determining who created the most dominant species. Each food token you have in your bag is worth 1 point. Each surviving species is worth the number of points equal to their population. And finally, each trait card above the species boards are worth 1 point. Whoever has the most points wins. If there is a tie, whoever has the most trait card points wins. If there is still a tie, the species with the highest population wins. If there is still a tie, according to the rulebook, you must order pizza, either a meat lovers or a vegetarian, and play again. And that's evolution.